This video is part 2 of a two-part series about Photoshop. In the first video, we discussed how to set a color code and how to determine a color code of an image. We also talked about resizing an image using both Canvas and the image resize tools, and how to step backwards when something happened that you didn't intend. This post is going to discuss how to use layers and how to add a transparent background to an image, both of which are something you'll probably use very often. So first things first, I'm going to show you how to add layers. So you can see I already have a canvas here, and I have one layer. Actually, I have many layers, but you can't see them. And I'm going to add a new layer. So the way that I did the background color, first of all, is I did a layer, and after I opened my canvas, and I said new fill layer, solid color, and then I just named it background color. And then once I did that, I picked my color. So obviously this isn't the color that I want, and so I'm going to click cancel. But this is how you would do that. You could click anything if you don't know what you're looking for, or you can type a specific color code here, or using any of these other ones. Click OK, and that'll save that background color for you. So I'm going to click cancel, and now I'm back to what I had. So from here, I'm going to add regular layers. So from here, I'm going to say new layer, and then I'm going to name it. It's important to name your layers because later when you're, even if you have half a dozen, it doesn't even take very many. If you don't name them, you're going to forget which things you did in which order, and it'll be harder to use the layers to their maximum efficiency. So I'm going to say, I'm going to name it, and now it's over here, and there's nothing to it. So this transparent background means basically there's nothing in the layer yet. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm on the text tool right here. So I'm going to make a little text box. I'm going to left click and drag, and I'm going to start typing. And you can barely see that, but I am going to change the color. And if I didn't want to highlight this, I could click on the color picker first and change the color, and then it would type in that color. So I'm going to, let's just change this to I'm going to just make it different. I'm just going to guess. I'm not going to actually pick a color code. I'm just going to modify what was in there. I'm going to say OK. And then once I click over here to get off of that layer, this is the color that I just picked, and that's what it looks like. So I can continue doing that until I had filled this whole thing up with colors. In this example, I'm pretending that I'm looking for a specific color combination and trying to find what's absolutely best. So I have added several layers of different colors with the same language. So I'm actually going to turn those on right now. I'll talk about that in a minute. So you can see all the different ways that I've done that. So these are all the different layers. Each one of these is its own layer. And that makes it really easy too, as you just saw. If I decide I don't like something, or I'm not sure if I like it, or I want to compare just two things, I can click the little eyeball next to the layer, and it no longer is viewable. So this doesn't actually change the layer, it doesn't remove the layer, it doesn't anything to the layer other than you just can't see it. It's kind of like hiding a column or a row in Excel. So it's still there, but you just can't see it. And I could do these with several of these until I get down to, let's see, the 6 is the one I just added. Until I get down to these two that are very similar, and maybe these are the two that I've come down to, I think, or I want to narrow it down, and because these are so similar, I want to get rid of one and keep the other and then compare it to the other ones. So I could do that. So say I decide that I like this one here better than this one. So if I click on this one, it tells me immediately what layer it is. It automatically highlighted it. And now I could come up here, and if I right click on this layer, I can say delete layer. And now that one is actually gone, so there's no turning it back on. So if I turn on all the ones that are off, there we go, you will see now there's a hole there. So this is one of the cool ways you can use layers, and this is a very, very simplified example, but it's just a quick and easy way to show you how these work. The beauty is if you're building an image or that has a bunch of different aspects to it, it might have text, and it might have an image, and it might have a smaller font text piece, it may have you know, your anything to do with your business, like phone numbers and address or whatever it may be. It could be anything, or it's just a creative thing that you're adding specific layers onto something that you're drawing. It could be anything. As you're doing it, if you use multiple layers and later you decide you don't like something, it's really easy, as you can see, to toggle off. I can toggle off here, and I numbered these specifically so you could see that I can immediately toggle off the first color I did. or the first thing you did to any image. So imagine that. Any step along the way, as long as you made it its own layer, you can toggle that on and off anytime you want to see how it works with the rest of what you've done. So that's the beauty of layers, is you can isolate pieces that you then can decide to toggle on and off to see if you still really like it, and or delete just in and of itself, only that one little piece, because you decide you didn't want it anymore. So that's the huge beauty in layers, is instead of trying to use step backwards, which is great if you just did something and you went, oops, that's not at all what I meant to do. The layers is for like long-term efficiency and building an image over time and adding to it and choosing what you like and what's the best fit. So layers is really for developing something a little bit more complex and having the flexibility and ability to go backwards as you need to. So that's how layers work. This is, again, a very simple example, but you can use it in a million different ways. Obviously each layer could be something different, or you could have multiples of similar things too. It's extremely flexible. Okay, moving on to the last thing, an image. Adding transparent background to an image. Okay, so we kind of talked about how to resize images in the first one, but I want to talk about something a little bit different this time. So this is just an example image. It could be anything. When you have an image, oftentimes when you are trying to put it on the internet or like a website, social media, anything you can think of, every single place you go to put it requires or asks for and says specifically, here's the best fit sized image. If you've done any image work, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And even without doing image work, if you just have a social media account, you'll know this. And so what happens is you probably have like the perfect image that you want to use, and yet it's not exactly the size you want it to be. So we talked about sizing last time, and we talked about how when you resize something, oftentimes it will stretch the image. Like if you're trying to take a really small image and it needs to be like 6 times bigger, sometimes it gets that like pixelated blurry effect, right? And that's not really what you want, obviously. Nobody wants that. And then other times you can add to the actual canvas to make it bigger, and that basically just expands the image in a way that doesn't mess with the original image, right? But one of the things we didn't talk about is the little lock on an image. So like this image has a little lock, meaning there's certain things I cannot do to it. So if I do the Control-Alt-Canvas on this one, let me squeeze this inside here, and I add to it, let's just say, let's say the width needs to be 1,000 pixels. That'd be perfect. And I say, okay, does that look good? Not really, because what do I have? I have this weird little white tab on the side, right? Like, depending upon the website or where you're putting this, if I'm putting this anywhere that doesn't have a white background, that's going to look horrible. So we don't want that. So I'm going to use the step backwards first, because this is one of those places, that's perfect solution. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this. So the canvas is the right way to go. Sorry, I should have started with that. The canvas is the right way to go, but there's a different way to do it when you have an image that's locked. So you're going to right click and you're going to say duplicate layer, and you're going to say okay. And then you're going to delete your original layer. And now we have a copy that doesn't have the lock, but my image is exactly the same. So now if I do Control-Alt-Canvas and I add to this, it is going to add a transparent background. So it doesn't look transparent because it's got this little checkerboard, but that stands for transparent. So now I could save this and I have an image that's exactly the size I need it to be, and the background, because like in this instance, like trying to catch these colors, and this happens a lot, would be hard to match because it's not the same all along the edge. And that is common of so many images. You'll find this all the time, which is why this is a really great little tool, or a little like trick workaround. But now I have this transparent background, so that no matter where I put this image, it's technically, because in this instance, let's say that's the case, they wanted a 500 by 1000. It's exactly the size that they asked for, and I didn't have to mess up my image by, pixelating it out, by drawing it out and dragging it out, and I don't have a white background. The last key to this, and I'll do this quick because it's getting kind of long. If I do save for web, it'll give me these images and it'll show you. This is a perfect example of how this works. So if I save it, the original over here like this, so you can see this is my original, but if I save it as a JPEG, see how there's a white background There's that, what I added turned white. If I go to PNG, it's transparent. So that's what you want. You want to save it as a PNG because that'll retain that transparent background. A JPEG will actually it'll turn it white. So those are the two little tricks. You get rid of the, create a copy and get rid of the little lock key, and you save it as a PNG. And that's how you can basically turn an image into any size you need it to be without changing the image itself. And that's it.